Hi there. Welcome back to Quick Chain Lessons by Chain Academy. Have you ever clicked a button on a website and instantly seen a message pop up? Or maybe you have typed into a search bar and noticed suggestions appearing right away. Did you know that all of this happens because of JavaScript? JavaScript, or JS for short, is the language that makes websites interactive and dynamic. While HTML gives a page its structure and CSS adds style, it is JavaScript that makes the page come alive with actions, responses, and real time updates. In today's session, we are going to get started with JavaScript. We will write our very first lines of code, understand the building blocks of the language, and see how it connects to everything else on the web. By the end, you will see why JavaScript is one of the most important skills to learn as a developer. So, JavaScript is a high level interpreted programming language that we use to add behavior to software. Unlike languages that need compiling, JavaScript runs directly, which makes it quick and easy to test your ideas. What makes it even more powerful is flexibility. It can run right inside the browser to make websites interactive, and it can also run on the server side through tools like Node.js. It is also a fantastic language for beginners because you get instant feedback, the syntax is quite forgiving, and there's a huge ecosystem of libraries and frameworks you can learn from. So, in short, JavaScript is the glue that connects users with dynamic, interactive experiences, whether on the web, on servers, or even in desktop and mobile applications. Now, let us talk about data types. Every value we work with in programming has a type, and the computer needs to know what kind of value it is dealing with. That is what a data type tells us. Think of it like a label or category for information. For example, the number 25 is very different from the word 25. One is a number you can do math with, and the other is a string of text. In short, data types help us organize and work correctly with values in JavaScript. Without them, the computer will not know how to treat the information we give it. In JavaScript, all data types fall into two main families, the primitive data type and objects. Let us start with primitive data type. A primitive represents a single, simple value like a number, a string of text, or a true false value. These are the basic building blocks of the language. On the other side, we have objects. Objects are much more powerful. They can hold multiple values of different types, all grouped together. Think of them like containers. For example, an object could store someone's name, age, and email all in one place. So remember, primitives are simple, objects are collections. As we move forward, we will see examples of both, and you will start to recognize when to use each one. But first, let us take a closer look at the primitive types in JavaScript. First, we have string. This is just text. Anything inside codes like hello or JavaScript or hello world is a string. Even your name is a string. Next, number. This covers both integers like the number 42, number 100, number 10, and so on, while decimals like 3.14 is also under the category of number. In JavaScript, there isn't a separate type for whole numbers and decimals. They are all just numbers. Then we have the Boolean. These are simply true or false. They are great for decision making in your code. While null represents an intentional empty value, it is like saying, this item exists but it has no value right now. Next is the undefined, which means a variable has been declared but hasn't been assigned a value yet. So the computer doesn't know what it holds. While the big int is used for very large integers that go beyond the normal number range. And finally, the symbol. This is a special type used to create unique identifiers, often useful in advanced coding. So, whenever you are working with values in JavaScript, they will fall into one of these primitive types, unless you're working with an object. So, let's move on to objects, the second big family in JavaScript. Objects are more complex than primitive data types. Instead of holding just a single value, they can hold multiple values and even values of different types, all grouped together. The most common kind is the plain object. Think of it like a dictionary with key value pairs. For example, you could have an object that represents a person. The object stores a name, an age, and a boolean all inside one variable. A variable is the container of the data, which we will talk more about later. Another special type of object is what we call an array. Arrays are used to store lists of values, like a shopping list or a list of numbers. Arrays are really powerful because we can loop through them, add new items, and manage collections of data. So, in short, while primitives are about single values, objects let us organize and structure data in more meaningful ways. In order for you to see it in action, let us have a quick demo. Now, in order for us to start, let us create a folder. Let's say here in desktop, and let's say this is JavaScript. Let's open our favorite code editor. I will use Visual Studio Code, and you need to open this folder inside your VS Code. There you go. And inside your folder, let's create here an HTML file which will contain our JavaScript code. Let's say this is quick chain episode 4.html. Let's have the boilerplate of HTML. If you don't know HTML, you might consider studying it to understand it better. But let's focus on JavaScript for now. So this part here, the title, will be the title of your tab inside the browser, which you will see later. Let's say this is JavaScript, quick chain, part 1. And let's go to extensions. And you need to install live server in order for you to play the JavaScript inside your browser. Just click the install button here. Afterwards, you can right click your file again and open with live server. Now you will see the browser containing your display. So you will see the title here, JavaScript Quick Chain Part 1. So let's have here a good layout for a demo. Let's wrap the code. Okay. So maybe in this part, I will put here script and then I will put type and I will put application, JavaScript, and this script tag here will contain our JavaScript code. So the first thing that we will learn is what we call the string. But before we do that, let's go to file, make sure your autosave is on, and then let's have here let greeting, and then let's have here hello JavaScript. So this part here is what you call a variable, which we will talk more about later. And this let here is one way in order for you to create a variable. But we will talk about it on the next part of our session. And we will focus first in this hello JavaScript here. So this one is an example of a string. In order for you to see it inside your browser, we will use what we call a console.log. So technically, console.log will let you display any information in the browser through its console. So in order for us to display this, we will call the variable greeting and put it inside this open and close parenthesis of console.log. Let's have a semicolon. Let's right click our browser anywhere inside it. And then let's have inspect and then go to console and you will see hello JavaScript. So that one is an example of string. How about numbers? In order for us to create a number, let's have let age and let's say 25. Let's have a decimal. Let's say the value pi, it's 3.14. And let's have console.log and let's have age here and then let's have another console.log, and let's have pi. Let's have your semicolon, and you will see the two numbers here, and you will notice that 25 and 3.14 has a different color compared to hello JavaScript, meaning these two are numbers. Now let's go to Boolean. Let's have let is student. Let's say, for example, we are asking a question to a person if he or she is a student or not. So it can be answered by true or false. So true or false means it's a Boolean. So let is a student. Let's console.log. Let's have is a student. And you will see here the Boolean value. We also have null or the empty value. Sub console.log. And let's say empty value. And you will see the null here. And you will see that it has a different color also. Let's copy this and we will use not assign, or rather we will call this as undefined. So let's name this as undefined. So let's leave it like this and let's have undefined, and you will see this is undefined. It's also color gray in the console. Now you can also use the big int and the symbol. So let's have first the big number, and let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's have a number, random, 0. Let's put an even n to make it more bigger. And let's have a console. Let's have big number. Okay, there you go. Next, let's have here the symbol. Let's have here let's say symbol, the name of the variable, and the data type. For symbol is symbol, open and close parenthesis, ID, let's say, and then let's have here console, not log, and symbol. And we will see here symbol ID. So this will be an identifier for advanced coding. But we will not be able to see it right now because we're still on the foundational part of JavaScript. Now, how about objects? So in objects, the construction of the data is quite different because objects can hold multiple data. Let's say, for example, the plain object itself. Let's create an object, let person equals open and closing bracket, and then semicolon the end. And inside this bracket will contain what we call properties. Properties are the items inside an object. So, for example, you're describing a person. So, the items could be name of the person. Let's say Alice. So, the first data that we will contain is a string. And then we will have an age here. Let's say 25. The second data is a number, and the last data, let's say for example, is student, and we will have it as boolean and we will declare as false. So if we try to console.log this, the structure is also different. Console.log person, and you will see the object here. If you want to target a specific property inside an object, you just need to have the name of the object and then period, and then you need to put the property name. Let's say, for example, person that name, and you will have Alice here. All right. So the next is what we call an array. An array is usually a list of items compared to an object that describes its object. So instead of using property, array is using index for its data. So let's say, for example, let market list the name of our variable. So an array must have open and closing bracket, then semicolon, and then we will have here the list. Let's say, for example, the market list is vegetables. We will have also milk. We will have also juice. We will have also fruits, etc. Now, in order for us to target this, let's console.log market list, and you will see all the data inside the array. So you will notice here 4 means it contains 4 items. And then if you want to target specific data inside an array, you can use what we call an index. So an array starts on index 0, which contains vegetables, while the milk is inside index number 1, the juice is index number 2, and fruits is index number 3. So try to use it in the console.log. In order for you to declare the index, open and closing bracket, put the index number, let's say milk. So we will have here 1. So we will be able to fetch run-of-the-mill data. Now that you know the data types on both primitive and objects, let's now go to variables. So a variable, just like what we have used earlier in the demo, the let keyword, is like a labeled box that stores data in your program. You can put something inside that box and later you can look inside of it, take it out, or even replace it with something new. For example, if I created a variable called age, I can put the value 25 inside it, and then later, if that age changes, I can update the box to 26. This idea of naming and storing values is what allows us to write flexible, reusable code. Instead of hard coding numbers or text everywhere, we just stored them in variables and used the name. In JavaScript, there are three main ways to declare variables: let, cons, and the older var. Let us focus first on the two modern ones, let and cons. Let is used when you need a variable that can change over time. It's also block scope, meaning it only exists inside the curly braces where you define it. We will have a short demo later. And then the cons is the opposite. It stands for constant. Once you assign a value to a cons, you can't reassign it. This makes it perfect for values that should never change in your program. Most of the time, developers today use cons by default and only switch to let if they know the value will need to change. Finally, let's talk about the third way to declare variables in JavaScript, the bar keyword. Bar has been around since the very beginning of JavaScript. And while it still works, it's considered old fashioned and best to avoid in modern code. The main issue is that var is function scope and not block scope. It means that if you declare a variable inside curly braces, it can sometimes still be accessed outside of them. That can lead to confusing bugs, especially in larger programs. This is why modern JavaScript developers almost always stick with let and cons, which behave more predictably. So the rule of thumb is use cons by default, let when you need to reassign, and avoid the var keyword. In order for you to understand it better, let's have a quick demo. To have a fresh start, let's comment all of the codes that we have here. So the comment in JavaScript is slash asterisk and then close it with asterisk slash again. However, if you want to comment one line of code, you can use double slash. Okay, so let's have our demo code here. Let's go to our example. Let's say we have a let and we will name it as score. So the name of the variable is a score and the value is 10. And let's have console.log. Let's first have a string here to label the data. Let's say the first score is, and then we will use a comma to separate the logic and we will display here score. And then we will use the comma to insert another data that we will show, which is the variable score, which represents number 10. And you will see in the console that the first score is 10. However, the score variable can be changed. Let's say, for example, score, and let's reassign a new value. Let's have your 30. You will notice that the display in the initial one is 10, but if I put another console.log here, the second score is, let's put here score, and you will notice the second display says the second score is 30. So that's how you use let in a variable. If you want to reassign the value or you believe that the data inside that variable, so let's say for example, cons pi equals to 3.14. So this number will never change. It's always 3.14 for the value of pi. And let's try to change this. Pi equals to 2.14. And you will notice that you will have an error here that says assignment to constant variable. It means that you cannot change the cons variable or reassign any values for it. So let's comment this to avoid the error. Now, lastly, for the bar keyword, let's have here an if condition, which we will talk in another session. But I want to show you the curly braces. We will have here two variables. We will use first the bar. Let's have old bar, and I will say, I will exist outside this block. The block means the territory of the curly braces. So this is one block, and this is the block that this variable is referring to based on the string description. Now, let's have a let keyword here, and let's say I disappear after this block. So we will see the difference of the two. First, let's console.log the old bar, and you will notice that the old bar still exists outside this block. While if you try to console.log blocklet, you will notice that you will have an error and it will say blocklet is not defined because blocklet only exists in this block and it will not exist outside the scope of the curly braces. So that's how easy it is to use data types, whether it's primitive or an object inside JavaScript, and it's very simple to declare your variables inside your code. Thank you for joining me here in Quick Chain Lessons by Chain Academy. For more updates, follow us on our social media pages or visit our courses at www.chain-academy.io.